Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Game Club podcast. I am your host, Graham, and I am joined by Jake
Hello, everybody.
and George
Hey guys, how's it going?
and Dal. Okay. Dallon's actually not here, but we have Gareth. Okay. Gareth is also not here. This is going to be a bit of a weird monthly podcast with just the three of us, but we're going to make do. There was a little bit of time conflictions, so the other two won't be joining us. So it'll be us three. We'll make do. So we'll tough it out. All right. So this month's game was selected by yours truly, and it was Nox. And so I'll give a little precursor for anyone who isn't familiar with Nox or didn't play the game this month. So Nox is a top-down kind of camera it's an action RPG, very much in the similar vein of something like Diablo. So if you're familiar with Diablo, you'll have a pretty good idea of what Nox is like. Nox, however, the big difference between Nox and Diablo is while Diablo is very focused on loot, Nox is more focused on, not that Diablo's not focused on story, but it's more focused on story and the action portions of combat and stuff like that, and some exploration. It's much
And
smaller in
multiplayer.
scope. And multiplayer, yeah. Multiplayer is a big focus of Nox. Not as big a focus. Cooperative multiplayer is pretty big in Diablo, but PvP is certainly not. But Nox is really big on the PvP. So that's kind of a general summary. If you're familiar with Diablo or those types of games, those action RPGs, that's kind of what we're looking at. So I guess I will launch off since I was the one who selected it. I absolutely love Nox. I played the ever-loving crap out of it with my best friend Brendan, like forever ago. We played PvP against each other, against other people. We played the cooperative PvP, or cooperative, I guess, mode that's like PvE co-op, called Quest mode. Man, I have so many good memories of playing Nox. I just absolutely love it. So I was glad that I was able to pick it and kind of share together. I will admit, there is one blunder that I did make when I picked this game is I didn't focus enough on making sure you guys, or really the group in general, played the quest mode or us doing some multiplayer throughout the month. I should have emphasized that a little more. I emphasized the single player and going through the single player, and then kind of if you had time to do the other stuff, to maybe do that a little bit. But so that was a bit of a blunder on my end, because most of my memories of Nox are the multiplayer, whether it be PvE or or PvP or the co-op. So that being said, I really enjoyed what I played, but I mean, I'm exceptionally biased because I love this game from back in the day and from playing it recently. I really enjoyed it. So why don't we go ahead and get like a precursor first impressions, and we can kind of go from there. Who wants to jump in?
Sure, I can jump in. First,
Sure.
just going on first impressions, one thing the immediate thing is obviously there's a cutscene in the very beginning that kind of introduces you to the story of the game, and has Hecubah, is that her name again? I always
Hecubah?
forget
Yeah,
her name. Yeah,
Hecubah.
Hecubah. She's
Yeah.
like doing some chanting, trying to like revive the dead, and like one of the candles goes out. She's like, oh, I don't even remember what she says. She's like, stupid candle makers can't get anything out of
Yeah.
quality these days, or something like that. Like, just
Yeah, she's like, kill them all when I rule the world.
yes, yeah. And then
Yeah.
it cuts to the guy, the character that you play in the campaign is some regular dude from our world, apparently, and
Right.
he's standing in front of his TV, and he gets somehow sucked into the world of Nox, and he's just like, he's slamming his TV trying to get it working, and his girlfriend or wife, like from the other room, like screams across like, hey, do you want bacon for dinner? And he's just like, yeah, I love bacon. And it's just like, I was just looking at this like, what what is
Yeah,
this
like, what is
game?
happening?
I think it was the very first thing, like right after I'd played it on Discord. Right after I played it, I reached out to you on Discord, and I think I remember telling you specifically about that scene in the beginning. Like, what what is this?
What is
like,
this?
yeah, what is this video game that I'm getting into? So like, personality wise, it did definitely have a lot of that. Um,
A lot of charm.
a
Yeah.
lot of charm, yes, yeah. It took a little bit for me to get used to the controls, be able to kind of Um, I think a lot of it is just from the modern games that I played. They don't control like that quite a lot. Like you have to like move your character around. You have to kind of click and hold where you want to go, and he
Mm-hmm.
walks that direction. After a while, I got used to it, but just right from the get go, since we're talking about first impressions, that was something that took a little bit getting used to. But
Did you ever play Diablo?
I didn't. No, no.
Okay.
But like I played like HOTS with you
It's
guys, and so that's
right.
what I was used to, like that kind of controlling where you like click and stuff.
Yeah, like HOTS is more like RTS style where you're doing a lot of clicking,
Mm-hmm.
whereas Diablo, it's not totally the same as Nox, but Diablo is more similar to Nox than
Okay,
it is to HOTS. So it's more like
gotcha.
click and hold, I believe, right? Like I
I'm pretty
played
sure
Diablo
it's
recently.
just
I should remember.
RTS controls. I don't know, but
Is
it's
it?
been so
Is it
long since
just
I played
click?
a Diablo. But
I played it recently. I should know this, but yeah, something like that.
also, it
Yeah.
confuses me too because I've played the console version of Diablo 3, so that's just
Ah,
straight up analog stick action game.
analog.
So
Yeah.
the last one I played with um, mouse and keyboard was 2 probably. I bought 3, but I don't think I ever even played it on PC.
Really?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh,
I'm
dang.
not sure, but
Huh.
Yeah, that
Okay, so
was it
but you
for first
eventually.
impressions. Like it was just
Okay, right.
yeah, it was definitely the charm came through a lot. Um, and another thing that came through in the beginning, I guess, just like the beginning levels, was I really felt like I was kind of playing D&D. We've had a little bit of a discussion. In fact, well, I'll just say it. We had some technical difficulties last time we tried to record this because I completely forgot to hit record. So
Yeah.
we talked about this a little bit, and I just realized what I'd done, and so we're coming back at it again a different day,
we're
trying to
we're
get
back
some.
at it. We lost half the podcast, but
Yes.
well, I don't remember it because I was blackout drunk. So I guess this is the first time I'm
Excellent.
here.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, I compared it to Baldur's Gate because it felt a lot, very much like D&D, and Baldur's Gate felt to me like I was playing. Well, I played D&D after I played Baldur's Gate, but just kind of going back to it, I was like, okay, yeah, this feels like D&D. That was also a first impression that I got from Nox, is it felt like I was playing kind of a gamified version of D&D. Um,
Yeah.
Especially like going into towns and not being able to buy out the shops. Obviously, not every game allows
Right.
you to do that, but that's a very much so a D&D thing where you kind of have to decide what it is that you want, um, and spend your gold wisely, because there's not really any
Right.
ways to farm it in D&D. Well, I guess there technically could be, but it's just not
Right.
as common as it is in like games in
Grinding and
general.
farming for resources and gold isn't really a thing in D&D, so
Yes, yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
If it
Yeah.
is for you,
Nice.
you maybe you should check out a different DM or something.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
How many
Can you
times are we
imagine
killing
that
these
just
sheeps?
yeah, like I just like imagining that
You
D&D
need
making the
20 more
players grind.
sheepskins.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Hey,
Anyways,
maybe there's someone
so
out there who likes it, and that's
Well,
what they do.
I
some little
guess
versions of that, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
I'm I'm sure it would be a funny premise. This is a bit of a tangent, but it would be a funny premise for like a plot point in a D&D or in a D&D campaign where they get a fetch quest or something and they've got to like do some grinding and stuff. That'd be funny.
and then they get another quest after that's like basically the same, just tiered up. It's like, okay, now I need 20 of these, and then 5 of the next
Yeah.
hardest mob.
It would go from funny to unfun very
Yeah.
quickly after
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But what were your first impressions, Jake?
Well, this game came out in 2000, so I was bracing myself for tragedy. We just
Tragedy.
yeah, just scared of what you were pulling us into. No, it wasn't that bad, but when the charm comes through immediately as soon as you fire the game up, it has that, since it came out literally at the turn of the century, January 2000.
Right.
So it has that late 90s feel to it, just in the comedy and the way it's mashing everything together. The music was really charming right at the beginning. It's layered very well. It sounds super fantastical and upbeat, but also has like a dark tone to it. There's just a lot of stuff like that that's like they're playing around with being dark and lighthearted at the same time. Basically, even from the
Right.
visuals right on the menu, you've got your wand is sparkling with fairy dust, and it looks so cool, like a fairy, like a storybook. And then you've got,
Uh-huh.
if you notice, human skulls in the corner with blood dripping down them. So you're like, wait, what? Is this a kids game or an adult game or
What is
somewhere
this?
in between? And yeah, I think it's somewhere in between, like it with the charm at least. So yeah, so firing it up, seeing that, and the character creator was pretty cool. You can do some cool stuff. Have purple hair and whatnot. Um,
Yeah, you can even like change your skin color to like green and blue and all sorts of
yeah,
random
you could be
stuff.
yeah
It's
you
crazy.
could RP that you're a blue man from space. Which I mean, I guess you're kind of are an alien in the game
I guess
because you're
so.
from a whole
True,
different
yeah.
world. So,
Yeah.
Technically, yeah.
but yeah, poor Jack
Huh.
got sucked through
Poor Jack.
The
the
TV.
portal. Um,
Yeah. He never got his bacon.
He never
yeah,
got his
what the heck?
bacon.
The whole
Yeah,
thing was
poor
just
guy.
about
Actually,
the bacon.
I think one of the endings, because there's three different endings at each of the campaigns, like the ending is different. I think one of them he does go back home and he gets his bacon. I
Oh,
think.
really?
Well,
I
good
Okay.
to
think
know.
so.
Um,
Spoilers.
yeah. So
Spoilers. He
yeah,
gets the bacon.
it uh it had his charm at the beginning, and it didn't look as bad as I thought it was gonna look. But those are my first impressions.
Nice. Okay, well that's good. It sounds pretty positive first impressions. So I like to hear. Okay, so we're gonna move on to gameplay, level design, mechanics, and etc. So we're gonna talk about the mechanical workings of the game, what we thought, what our experiences were. We can just I guess we can, unless someone has something they really want to talk about off the bat, we can just kind of keep going in a loop a little bit. Um, I I don't know if I have too much to say about this, but I really just enjoyed, like right off the bat, I really enjoyed the gameplay of it. Like I hadn't played it in a long time, easily half a decade, because occasionally I'll boot it up just to kind of tinker around with it. But it just kind of felt like riding a bike that I hadn't ridden in a while. I was just getting right into it, and I had a good time. I usually play Conjurer. That's kind of my go-to. But this time I played, I have played a lot of the other classes, but this time I played through the campaign for all of them. So I got like the full suite of different mechanics and different ways to play. I really like it. I like how the skills kind of work together. Um, I like, yeah, it's got, there's a lot of like fun variety. There's a lot of, what's the word for, not superfluous, but there's a lot of kind of,
Just
vanity's
extra
not the
flavor
right
and
word.
flair.
Yeah, there's a lot of like flavor stuff that's like, things like the wizard has like a lock door spell, right? And I really like just like the flavor things that they add to the game that are just kind of like superfluous, not a big deal. Like you don't really need to use this lock spell, but the fact that it's there and that I could
Mm-hmm.
use it and it could be useful slightly, just like, man, that really like brings me into the world and just like activates my freaking neurons in my brain. I'm just like lighting up all these possibilities. Like, look at this spell. This spell is like teleport to. You can like set a location marker down and teleport with this spell to that location marker, and maybe I can do some other stuff. It just there's so many interesting spells that are just like very niche that I feel like in modern games, like everything has a very specific design. And it's like, we made this spell to be just as useful as all the other spells, and it has a very specific purpose, and it gets used in this specific way. And if it's not useful enough, then we cull it and, we take that feature out. But in Nox, it was just like, why don't we think of like a million different things that would like barely be useful, but it would be interesting and fun because we can just do it. So I really like that. I like the mechanical like breadth in the game when it
Yeah,
comes to
sounds
spells.
like it lets you play around with the world more, and
Yeah.
that's what they're really going for, to fill out the
Yeah.
content in the game. Seemed like with all those
Yeah.
spells.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
almost makes the game like a sandbox. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
do like PvP, it becomes this like PvP sandbox.
Yeah, and like things like that, things like lock doors specifically, or kind of little tiny spells like that. It's just, if you think about like if we were to pretend magic was real and somehow we developed a magic system, someone at some point would have come up with a locked door spell or like an open mayonnaise jar or pickle jar that's like stuck spell. It's just those random things that you don't think about, and in a game scenario wouldn't really be very useful, but it's just that's how it would work in real life. I guess you would have just random spells like that just have a very specific niche purpose, but it would be handy. Like if because I'm sure you guys do. You lock your doors before bed every night.
Leave mine wide open.
Open
with a neon sign saying, come in.
Yeah.
Enter here.
Yeah,
if
but
you
like
dare.
it would be so it would be so nice. I at least lock my doors, but it would be so nice if I could just like from my room, like, oh crap, I forgot to lock the door, and I just wave my wand.
But hold on,
Yeah,
George,
you can't.
You
do
wouldn't
that.
do it like that.
You can do that with
You have to
Wi-Fi
go,
and
that's true. Yeah.
That's
true.
what
Yeah,
you do.
yeah.
you gotta do hand signals.
some
fingers.
gibberish. But yeah, that's the other
Turn
thing.
into freaking Mumbo from Banjo Kazooie. Woke up.
Yeah, but yeah, the fact that they added that, so whenever you do a spell, just for those listening, whenever you do a spell, the character says some gibberish. It's really what it is. Gibberish,
really.
And then some hand signals like show up above his head. But that,
like around the character.
yeah, that just adds atmosphere.
So much personality.
Yeah, atmosphere, personality to it. And after a while, it can get
every time you cast it. You
yeah,
can't turn
after
it
a while,
off.
Yes.
After a while,
It's
it can get
amazing.
annoying,
It's amazing
especially
for
when
a
you use the
while.
same-
I found it annoying after a minute.
I didn't realize until you said that it could absolutely get annoying, but now I've realized I played easily like 100 or 2 hours of Nox throughout my life. I've never gotten like annoyed or bored with those sounds. They've always been good to me.
Yeah.
But I guess that's true. It could get
The,
annoying.
the only one that gets a little annoying for me was the Fists of Heaven. So it's like he this like random, or Fists of Vengeance. What is it called? Yeah,
Fist
and
of
it's like
Vengeance. That's
Fist
what
of
it is,
Vengeance. So this gigantic stone fist just like comes down from the heavens and like smashes onto things, and this chorus of people just like, every single time. Yeah, and it's just like,
that gets annoying.
Badass
I will
spell,
agree
though.
there.
it is
Sick though.
Could get over
Yeah.
it for a badass spell, but just for shooting a little fireball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like speaking of like random spells, I pulled up the spell list. One spell that I absolutely adore is Blink. Blink is it just sends you to a random location on the map. That's like what it does. It's just like, do you need to get out? Then you can just like hit it and boom, you're just gone. Who knows? You could have gone right beside yourself, or you could go on the other side of the freaking level. You don't know. But the one cool thing about it is players can go into your blink for like a second. It's like 1 second after you blink, someone enters the little like sparks, they can teleport with you. So sometimes in PvP, I had amazing battles where I would be in trouble, like, oh frick, I'm almost dead, I gotta get out of here. So I blink, but they go into my blink, and I'm like, oh frick, and then I blink again, and then they come with me, and so we're doing this like thing, and in my brain, it's so cinematic, but it's probably just chaos in the game. But I'm just like, I can see like the layers of like reality shifting around me as I'm like trying to climb away into different dimensions of this level, where someone's like trying to like claw their way through my like blink dust or whatever. Oh man, it's some of the most like cinematic PvP in my brain, at least. I don't know, but it's so cool like to think about. Like, if they hadn't have added that, if you could just blink away and that would be the end, it would be so lame. But the fact that, like, especially as a warrior, like if a warrior's coming up to you and you're a wizard and you've got nothing left and you just got to blink and they just chase you through those blinks, whoo, it's so fun. It's just tons of fun.
So you can use this blink in the single player too, right?
Yeah, you can use blink in single player, but it's like a small, like circular area that it'll kind of teleport you rather than the whole map.
Okay, I was gonna say that'd be funny to see some Nox speed runs based on RNG blink casts. Like they have to go into this specific area and hit blink, and if it doesn't send them to the right spot, they have to start full game over.
Yeah, right. Just like they're just like hitting it and hitting it and hitting it. Like come on, give me the end. Yeah, that would be funny. But yeah, it's cool very interesting.
Yeah, it's cool that they think about stuff like that. with their
Yeah.
spells. I also played I only played Conjurer. I didn't do the other two campaigns. I just stuck to the one. Um and I mean Conjurer was great. I felt sometimes as if maybe a wizard would have just been more magic and maybe I should have just stuck with wizard. And then I also felt sometimes like maybe I should have just gone warrior and got full on melee because I feel like I'm not getting enough of either as the conjurer. But also it turned out when we talked about it a little bit, I missed out on some of the best conjurer spells. So I mainly relied on Fists of Vengeance, and then the Meteor. Those are the two main ones because I would sometimes charm creature, but my biggest problem with charming creatures is that they were so slow. So
Right.
either I wouldn't have the scroll. So the way the charm creature works is you can take control of an enemy in the game if you have a scroll for that creature, and sometimes I wouldn't have the scroll for that creature, so I couldn't charm them anyways. And then when I did have the scroll, they were just so incredibly slow. Like I would be walking to the other side of the map trying to just get on with the game, and they'd just be lumbering behind, on the other screen because
Right.
they just still haven't caught up to me. And so like I barely use charm creature. The only times that I would really use it was either to banish some enemies in a room, because if you charm them, you can just make them disappear, or I would just send
Right.
them out hunting, and then they would hopefully maybe
For
kill out
stuff,
something.
right?
Yeah. But yeah, Conjure was good. I do, in hindsight, wish I would have found some of those better spells. What's that green one that has that bell sound? It's
Oh,
like a one
that's
hit kill.
Force of Nature.
Force of Nature, yes. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like a
Force
one
of
hit
Nature will
kill.
mess you up.
And I didn't come across that until we played the PvP, and I was like, what? Why did how did I miss this? But it was
Yeah.
just, yeah, I obviously just missed one of like the best spells of Conjurer. But Fist of Vengeance was good.
Yeah.
That one carried me through a lot.
Yeah, the multiplayer has all the spells unlocked. It's possible that Force of Nature may not even be a spell in single player. I'm not
Oh,
100%
really?
sure,
Okay.
but
That would make
they
me feel a little bit
definitely.
better. And I didn't
Yeah,
miss
so
something so crucial there.
seriously, yeah. Cuz some of the spells are hidden and some of the spells are in the shop. So if you don't check all the shops or have the money for them, you may miss spells, but I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. But for sure when you play multiplayer, you just get all access to all the spells, which is great.
Well, I have a question about
So
the charming stuff. I mean, could you not just summon stuff on the spot too, though?
not until the latter part of the game for Conjurer. You get
Yeah.
Charm Creature pretty early, but
Okay, so the majority
summon
you're just
creatures like
charming and
Mm-hmm.
closer to the end. Because, yeah, I noticed that in multiplayer for just summoning stuff, there's just so many different ones you could summon.
tons.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool monster variety, which is what I'm kind of a. This is gonna sound weird, but I'm like a monster file, which sounds like weird, but I'm like
You're
I
the reason
love.
they add the encyclopedia to every game now, where you can read everything about every
Yes,
monster.
I love monster design. I freaking absolutely adore it. It's just one of my favorite things ever. Monster and weapon design are like two of my favorite things ever. So for me, like Conjure was just a no-brainer. I was like, I get a little bit of magic, I get a little bit of this other melee stuff or like cool weapons, but the big thing for me was like the monster variety, which is quite good in Nox.
For a game
So
from 2000, they did put a lot of thought behind their
yeah,
monsters, and some of the designs, like the leeches, the blood sucking leeches or whatever they're called. I looked at that and I was like, wow, this is like as good as some of the leeches that I see in games today. Like I don't know what they did with that sprite, but it was good for, especially for a
yeah.
game came out in 2000. I was surprised.
Yeah, the sprite work in Nox is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's aged very well, I think. Yeah. Well, so let's see. There was one thing I wanted to say about the level design. Um, I wasn't I wasn't really a big fan of. So I played all of like within a week. I played all three campaigns, which maybe exacerbated this issue. But I was very excited to play Nox. So I felt like the first half of all the campaigns are really fast. Like you get to chapter 5 really quick. And then it starts to slow down a little bit, but the last like bits, especially when you go to the swamp and when you go to the ice section of the swamp, or if that's even part of the same level or whatnot, man, it is really long and not super fun, almost to the point where, eventually I just started running through stuff. I was just like, I'm not gonna do this whole swamp. I'm gonna see if I can run through it, and most of the time you can. So yeah, like I really like the last levels that were like inside Hecubah's like fortress, where you're doing like puzzles and stuff. It was long, but it was pretty good and engaging. The swamp and the ice place, whew, not my favorite.
Yeah, definitely agree about the swamp. That was my least. I think it's chapter 8. There's like how many? 11 chapters total, 10 chapters total, something like that.
10.
10.
I think 10.
It was chapter 8, I remember, which was absolutely a pain. I I wouldn't say I hated the other levels. I disliked chapter 9, the ice one, but I hated the swamp. I would get stuck in dead ends so many times. I died way too often in that freaking level. And because there was also so many of those plants that would explode into like poisonous fumes.
Yeah.
And so you get poisoned a lot. There's a million dead ends. There's way too many enemies. And well, one of my main issues with Conjurer, and I'm sure it's the same thing with Wizard, is I'm used to mana regenerating faster in games
Right.
than it does in Nox. In Nox, really, the mana self regen is like almost non-existent. So you have to stand next to these obelisks to be able to, or sometimes it's even just these like blue stones to be able to regenerate your mana and be able to cast more spells. Getting to some of these like stones and obelisks in chapter 8 in the swamp was like absolutely a nightmare. And then there's a point in there where I ended up falling through like 5 stories and I got completely lost. I had no idea where I was. And the only way to get out, there was this gate. I distinctly remember it. There's this gate. Inside the gate, there's a scorpion. And behind the scorpion, there's this red button that you have to press. And when you press that red button, then an elevator on the side kind of starts going up and down. And then you can kind of get out of this little cave thing. There's a thing on the floor, a switch on the floor that you step on, and when you step on it, it opens a gate. Well, out comes out the scorpion, and so I move away to try and save
Like
myself. Yeah, and I open up a gate to another freaking enemy. It was a mimic. It's these like black insect looking like things with metal big claws or whatever. Yeah, or pincers. Things, yeah. And there's 5 of them in like all these gates, and I end up accidentally opening all of them because I'm trying to like escape, and so I end up having to kite them. And because I was like, it'd been a while since I last saved, and I was like, okay, I am not dying right here. I have no idea where I am. Like, I don't want to start from here and everything. And so I like kited them for I don't even know how long, and kept dropping the fist on them, and then I would keep kiting them, and it was, dude, it was such a pain because those things are so freaking hard to kill as well. Yeah. The swamp, I hated that level. All the other
messed
ones
you up.
Especially the beginning levels were great. They were pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
There was some fun, nice little hidden areas. And a lot of the beginning ones you got to kind of go into a town and talk to the townsfolk and kind of feel like you're role playing a little bit, but chapter 8, dude, if there's some way where I could have just skipped to the end, like I eventually started doing what you did, which was just kiting everyone, just running through. But then I'd end up in a dead end, and then I'd have to turn around, and I have this gigantic wave of enemies coming at me, and it was just, yeah. Chapter 8 was no fun for me. Chapter 9 was a little bit like that too, but less so than 8. 8 was definitely the worst offender for me.
Agreed. How far did you get, Moose? I understand you didn't finish, right?
Yeah, I was a very bad game club member this month. I didn't finish this game. Long story short, or rather just a bunch of stuff you probably don't want to hear. I just wasn't having a great month, let alone just the last couple weeks. I didn't have any problems starting the game. It wasn't really a time thing so much as like I just haven't been in the right mindset to even play games. I haven't even been doing dailies on my favorite MTG arena very much. So I literally have not
That's how you
played.
know you're. That's how you know you're really out of it.
Yeah, I just have not played a lot in the last couple months, or I mean, couple weeks, moving, and then I've just had some personal, um, emotional problems that led to me rage quitting this game at one point. So, for my mental health, I just decided I had played enough. But
Sure.
I can tell you what I did play. I started with Warrior, and like I said, I was really enthralled by the game actually at the beginning. But it became very apparent really quickly. I didn't have any problems like learning the controls or learning how to play the game. It just nothing felt good to me. I just didn't like the
Okay.
combat. I think the combat for the warrior especially. I know we've gone into it about the conjurer and the wizard, like all the cool spells you get and just how you can kind of role play stuff. And things can be different in different playthroughs too because there's so many different things to get probably. But
Right.
I think the warrior got a little bit left behind on stuff, even though it may just be a tutorial character and maybe that's the way they wanted it, but I just found it to be not fun. The movement's just weird, and all you're doing is you click to hit people, and you can't even hold down the button to continue to hit if you're just like if you got an opening and you
Right.
just want to wail, you just have to keep clicking it.
Click, click, click,
Um,
click, click, click.
yeah, so I just found and picking things up like picking up apples or chests or something was very awkward. I would miss them a lot.
That that's definitely true.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
definitely awkward.
so I think the game has potential. Even for me, not liking it initially, especially after we tried the multiplayer and the PVE stuff, where it was seemed much more enjoyable. But yeah, playing the single player, I just had to stop at a certain point because I just wasn't feeling it and it was just aggravating me. I mean, I really don't have much more to say than that. Like I said, I was just not in a good place and it aggravated me. It's not totally the game's fault, but I could not come at this game with like a blank slate at the moment,
Sure.
and I don't have the rose-colored glasses that you have looking back at it, so I am judging it very harshly based on
Sure.
that because I don't have any nostalgia for it, so it's very hard. Going back and playing old games is really weird because you never know what kind of things you were just into at the time that you just remember, and some things just like never go away in your head, and so that they don't bother you even when you remember. Oh, this was so different like back then than it is now. You just kind of roll back into it. Usually, something that you've played hundreds of
Right.
hours of, which sounds like you did. Things can really make an impression on you. So going back and playing something old, it's hard to realize what was actually just not super great in general, but it was just what it was at the time, and not that you can't enjoy it, but comparing it to PC games now is, I mean, PC games then were kind of niche, I believe, and
A
now
little bit. Yeah, they were more on the niche side for sure.
yeah, and now we have tons of great PC games in this type of vein, and but this definitely knocks it out of the park for the time. If I'm trying to put myself in that position, I think
Right.
it's loaded with tons of stuff. Like all the voice acting is really cool. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's up and down on quality, but I mean, I think it's really awesome that you can just walk up to any villager and you don't just get text, you get a voice
Right.
line and stuff. So the world seems cohesive and nice to be in, but mechanically it doesn't feel good to move around and perform the actions to me. And with it being an action game, that's what you're doing the majority of the time. So I couldn't really dig deep into just like ignoring that and just role playing and getting lost in the world. It kind of disconnected me from that. So
Right. Kept bringing you out.
yeah, so for that reason, um, yeah, I just had to walk away. But I've done a lot of research on the game, and I see its value then and now. And yeah, like the PvP and the endless sort of PvE dungeon crawl thing seems really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think if you did get used to the action, the mechanics, those modes have a lot more to offer for someone like me who didn't enjoy the single player.
Yeah, I think we had mentioned this before, but I think that we'll even take some time after this game is now, like now that we're finished with it for the game club purposes. There's always an opportunity for us, and it seems like there's some interest for us to all get together and play the quest mode at the very least, and maybe even do some PvP because it's just fun. It's just a kind of a fun game to play. So even after the fact that the game club is finished, we can have a little bit of fun with it. So yeah. But to what you were saying about the warrior, it definitely feels like the warrior got the, I think the warrior is pretty well balanced when it comes to all the classes because they're quite tanky and they're quite deadly.
Yeah,
So
not unplayable.
they're able, right? It's just the melee combat in the game is really basic, and that's being generous. It's literally just clicking, and so with the warrior only has 5 skills, 2 of which are really used most of the time, maybe 3, but that's not a lot, and they're pretty basic stuff. So the warrior definitely, like when I was playing through the warrior campaign, I was definitely feeling like, oh my gosh, this is like, I wish there was more for me to like play around with or do. Like it's a little dry. So if there was ever a Nox 2 that like alleviated some of those little issues that you had, and even I mean, picking up stuff is like one thing. The hitbox is way too freaking small to pick up stuff. Like, oh my gosh.
And the mouse just feels weird, and I think that's just a artifact of time and the way the technology and mouse smoothing has probably come along in games that like,
yeah,
it's, I don't know, it feels weird to load up something old and be like, am I this bad at the mouse? Like I use this all day. Like I can't, I couldn't get my DPI and the game settings to like converge at any moment. So
right.
yeah, it's just like everything was just that much off, which also made the range stuff weird when I was playing it in multiplayer. I got a bunch of lucky shots, but
one thing that you should know about the ranged is if you put your mouse towards, so like if the enemy is here and you put your mouse like in front or behind the thing you're trying to shoot, it's like 50-50 if you're going to hit it. Because I think maybe one thing that maybe was weird about the mouse thing is the game is not like 360 degrees, right? Because of the way that the game is based off of sprites, it's actually in sections.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't, if you can shoot here, you can also shoot here, but you can't shoot in between those two angles. Yeah. Everything is divided into subsections. So if you want to shoot,
it just has larger variants of degrees
than something like Diablo,
or smaller rather. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Less,
so
yeah.
It has less like angles to choose from than something like Diablo. Like Diablo is like very smooth, like you can almost shoot in any direction. With this game is like maybe we'll say like there's like 24 axes that you can shoot from on the angles. It's probably not that. It's probably higher, but if you have a monster in that kind of dead zone where you can't aim, you literally can't hit them. The one thing that you can do though is if you put your cursor on the monster, you will always hit. So even if it's in a dead axis, you'll always still be able to, it just like kind of draws the hit right to the monster. So, but it's something you have to like figure out. And the other thing is you have to put the mouse right on the monster. So if they're small, it's really obnoxious. So I can understand. Too. Yeah. Or if they're moving. Yeah. So I can understand it takes some getting used to. And even when you get used to it, it's not the best solution ever.
And talking about small obnoxious monsters, that was another thing that like, there's a mission you go on pretty early on as a warrior, and you're going through the dungeon part, and I like the dungeon feel and everything, and the game felt great, like just walking around and like looking at all the stuff and talking to the villagers, and then you get into, I'm like, okay, first little dungeon crawl, and it's just a bunch of these little gnome things or whatever, and they just throw rocks.
Urchins.
Yeah, and they don't really like hurt you that bad. They're no challenge at all. They're just annoying. They're just pelting you with rocks, and then they run pretty fast, and so you have to chase them. And it's not even, you have the charge as the warrior, but that like gets you one, like maybe if you can hit it, and then you have 10 other running around. Like so you have to run and try and catch up with these guys, and then stop. You have to stop to swing to kill them.
were you using a heavy weapon or a fast weapon?
No, I was using just the regular fast weapon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. God, I would have
Yeah.
never chose to use anything slower.
Right.
If it had come up, I was buying the best regular short sword or whatever I could find at the time. But anyway, yeah, I just felt like it was it was just so annoying I get that those are like the base level enemies and you're trying to, work your way up to other enemies, but they filled this entire dungeon with them. And
There's a lot of them. You like basically genocide the
yeah,
urchins,
it's like
Chad.
100 or
I
something.
actually
and,
felt bad doing it.
and it's just annoying. Like I was just thinking to myself, who was playtesting this, thinking I'm gonna be a new player coming into this, and being like,
It was me. I said it was great.
this is great. This is a great player experience, everybody. We're really getting like we're pelting them with 20 rocks that don't really hurt, but we're just annoying the crap out of the player for 15-20 minutes that it takes you to get through this dungeon. Actually, maybe even longer if you try and get all this, like go back and get the key for the secret room and whatever. It just felt like I was being dumped on by the level designers and everything. Like, just like,
see,
you idiot.
I enjoyed the AI characters running away. I was worried because I couldn't remember how they acted. So when they started throwing rocks, I was like, oh, I hope they don't just like stand there and I walk up to them and I just like murk them. I was like really happy that they ran away. I was like, oh, it's like the AI is like pretty smart. It wants to get away from me. So I had a lot of fun. Like maybe I'm just like a sick human being. I had a lot of fun like chasing them all down. Like, come here, you little
Yeah, that would have been fine
runt.
if it was just a few of them here and there, but it was just so many, and it was again
maybe you just don't like genocide like I do. Apparently,
I like good gameplay, and that was just supposed to annoy you. I think they're like
there is definitely something particularly annoying about the urchins. Something about their voice and like how
I
they
get
chuck
that they're
the rocks
supposed
at
to
you.
be again, but you can give
like,
the
to your
player
point-
that feeling without doing it that much. You know what I mean? Like,
right? I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. I get what you're
it's just
saying.
overdone. It was too much, and they weren't fun to kill. Like, they weren't fun to fight at all. You weren't really fighting them. You're just it was like chasing
Murdering
the
them.
golden goblin in Diablo 3 or something. You're just running away from me, just
Right.
trying to hit him 50 times. So
Yeah, there's something particularly annoying about the urchins, so I definitely agree. There is a cave that you go into as the conjurer, and sounds like probably not as many as there are for the warrior, but there is still
Warriors
a lot.
is a lot.
Yeah, there's still a lot, and like they just taunt you, and they, like you said, they don't particularly hurt. You could probably just ignore them, but there's something taunting about the urchins. They were one of my least favorite enemies because they were just so annoying, and they're so tiny and like.
Well, we know that you're George. You're very easily susceptible to tilting to PVE, so we know that those guys probably got right under your skin.
They annoyed me, dude.
I was definitely tilted, and they do.
See, I don't understand that.
They do pose a threat if there's like 50 of them throwing rocks at you, in which there is a room that you go into where it's all windows to other rooms,
yes.
and you can't get to any of them. You're just meant to like have to go through the room. But yeah, you get to the middle, and then your life just starts draining. And it took me a second to even realize that there was that many rocks coming at me because they're so small and you can barely see them. And I was like, damn, I'm dying all of a sudden. I have no idea. Like, did I step on like a trap or get poisoned or something? And then I realized they're just like through the windows, like throwing so many rocks at me. Yeah, and then eventually you go around to all those rooms and get them. But
dude, it's amazing. It's amazing.
no,
I enjoyed that section.
Did not
funny.
give me a good footing for the game. Like going out, like I was
I feel
already slightly annoyed by the combat, and then doing that
And
much
then it's
of that
immediately, yeah.
was a turn off.
Well,
I feel ya.
I know why Graham enjoyed that section because since I've ever known him, he's always told me like, dude, I wish there could be a room filled with a bunch of little kids.
Hold on. Let me.
Wait, what?
Hold on.
Okay, maybe I shouldn't start phrasing it that way.
Is he Anakin?
Yeah, hold on. You're gonna explain it in like a really weird way.
Okay, all right,
it's
all right.
weird, but like
you go ahead. Go ahead and explain
okay,
it.
no.
just as a quick precursor,
He
I've
wants
always
a room
had
full
this
of little
like
kids.
Yeah, little kids. Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna have to edit this all
We're
out.
so
Yeah, Frank.
well, we're not even
So-
monetized yet, so it's whatever.
Yeah, we're already we've already lost the privilege of being monetized. So I have always had this hilarious kind of, don't think about it too much. It's just a funny thing. But I've always had this thing of like, okay, wouldn't it be fun if you could fight like a room of kids, right? Like virtual, not real kids. So like, but you could just like wail on them. Like you get this like quarterstaff or something, and you're just like fighting like an army of 100 kids because they're like, we'll
Literally
call them
Anakin.
goblins.
Literally
We'll call them
Anakin.
goblins. Call them urchins, goblins. They don't have
Just
to be
small,
children.
easy to
but, like,
defeat creatures. They don't need to be kids.
See, you understand. That's right. We'll call them goblins. From now forward, I will always just refer to them as goblins or something. But at the time, it was kids because I just had the random thought. I was like, wouldn't it be fun? Because the concept of fighting like a lot of really easy things that you really have to like get into like battling sounds appealing, at least to me. And so that was like my dream of like, so George is now equating this to the genocide of the urchins, which is probably not too far
it's
off.
literally what you were asking for.
Yeah, so maybe that's
It's
why I
like,
enjoyed it so much.
Okay.
It's like that one thing. This is a big tangent, but it's that one video with Mewtwo King, who's a professional Smash Brothers player, and someone asks him, like, would you rather fight 1,000 horse-sized? What is? They don't ask him.
Oh, it's like 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck.
Yeah, but they don't ask him that. It's about Wizrobes, which is like an enemy in Zelda. But just if for those that are not specifically familiar,
they gave
with
him that.
It's that equivalent. Yeah, it's that equivalent
right.
of 1,000
duck-sized horses. Always on that question though. You do not want to frick with a bird that big.
Yeah, exactly.
Ducks are already bad at normal size.
Yeah. I mean, ostriches kill people, and they're basically that.
Yeah,
I mean, ostriches are big, so
yeah, ostriches is a horse bird.
Graham would definitely take the 1,000 duck-sized horses. To fight.
Yeah.
It sounds like so much fun.
I wouldn't want to fight them though; they'd be cute.
Yeah,
cute
exactly.
as heck.
Well, that's true. Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, so I can understand your souring on that. That makes sense. Like when I was playing through it, like it was generally fun for me, but I was like, I can understand, especially because you're saying the length. I can definitely understand the length being a little too much. There was definitely levels. I mean, that goes back to what I was saying before. There was definitely levels that were just too long. It's just like, why is this section of the game so freaking long?
The swamp
level,
by far the worst.
urchins, even the urchins thing was really long. I was like, I'm enjoying myself, but this is going on for a while, like as a first quest. Like that's crazy. So I can understand.
Yeah.
Speaking of, we had just before we realized that we lost the podcast, we had a amazing realization. Jake, you didn't finish the game, so you didn't experience this. That's not a big revelation. But George did finish the game. And he just fricked up this whole thing. The whole game, I don't know if George realized this. Apparently he was like listening to other podcasts while he was playing Nox. But the whole game is about building the Staff of Oblivion. And so you're getting like you get the
Oh, so this is a prequel to Elder Scrolls Oblivion, is it? No.
I mean, essentially, that's what it is. It's a continuity thing. So you're building this thing. You get like the orb, the Heart of Nox, and you get the Weirdling, and you get this Horrendus's like staff and stuff like that. And you eventually build this. So when you first get the first part of it, which is the initial just like staff weapon, it's not very good. But then you get like I think the Heart of Nox is what you get next, I think.
Yes, the Weirdling is the last one.
Weirdling is the last one, right. And so as you get more things for the staff, it becomes a more powerful melee weapon to a point where I think just getting the Heart of Nox makes it already better than like most anything you'll pick up. So, but the thing is, once you get the Weirdling, it becomes really powerful. And then you have to go get the orb from Hecubah. You go and steal the orb back that she stole from you initially at the beginning of the game. And so once you get the orb, I guess George didn't realize this, but the thing turns into a giant lightning beam staff where you just melt everything. Yeah, just like a huge torrent
like
of electricity.
I had it equipped,
but
it wouldn't do anything.
Oh, yeah.
I would like melee stuff, and it would like have this like blue sparks that I'm doing like
But it was
damage and
only
stuff.
once you got the orb. So you got the staff, you got the Heart of Nox, the Weirdling, and then you would get the orb. And once you got the orb from Hecubah, like at the last part of the game, just before you fight her, do you remember going into that one room and there was tons of enemies when like Hecubah's now like running away, and there's just like huge swaths of enemies?
Yes, I remember. Yeah, this is like in the temple, like the last. You're talking about the
Right.
last
At the
chapter.
very last
Okay.
part,
Yep.
right? There's like a
Yep.
huge amount of undead enemies, like zombies and skeletons, and
Mhm.
those like red
Yeah,
sorcerer
I
guys.
threw meteors and staff or fist of vengeance on them. I didn't use the staff, dude.
I can only imagine how long that took. That
It
staff
took me way too
absolutely.
long, dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say because you can melt all that stuff in seconds.
Oh
Like
my
they just
gosh,
get
dude.
deleted.
You missed
And
the
so,
biggest power
I
trip of the
missed
game.
I missed it, dude. I missed it.
It's
'Cause I was
such a
like,
great.
yeah, because I ended
Ah.
up using the staff that throws fire. Because I ended
Okay.
up acquiring like 10 of those. And well, probably not 10, but a lot of them.
Sure.
And
a
so I
bunch
would
of-
like use them, a lot, and then switch out to the next one and switch out to the next one and stuff. Because I was like, how the heck am I supposed to do this? I didn't know the staff would do that. I missed it.
It's such a glorious power trip, man, because you're like, yeah, finally. Bzz, you're like
Yeah.
zapping everybody. Oh, it's amazing.
I might
It's
have to go
amazing.
back and redo the last level with that.
Well-
But, yeah, you should. It's a trip.
I can say, as somebody who didn't finish the game, I definitely would have done that, though. I wouldn't have messed up like George, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we can write that down in the books. But
Yeah. Yeah, the funny thing is, so I did all three of the playthroughs and fought Hecubah. The funny thing is, when I played Conjurer, so I used the staff most of the time when fighting Hecubah, and Hecubah likes to run around a lot,
She does.
which can get a little annoying, but it can also set up for some epic stuff. Like I was saying in the multiplayer, you can like travel through blinks. She does blink a lot, and so you can, if you're really on top of it, you can go through
Oh.
her blink several times,
Yeah, I
and
never
it comes
did that,
kind of
but-
comes to. Yeah, it comes to this kind of like fun cinematic fight with her too. But I used the Staff of Horrendous on her as a conjurer, and I fought her for like 20 minutes, and I was like, this fight's taking forever. And then
Yeah.
I pulled out I switched to my crossbow, and I shot her a couple times with the crossbow, and it freaking melted her. She just got deleted from this crossbow. It did way more damage than the Staff of
That's
Oblivion
true.
did.
I did use the crossbow a lot, and you get that in like chapter 9, I think, the second to last.
Yeah,
one.
something
it
like
towards
that.
the end.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I did switch to the crossbow after that because it's definitely
Crossbow's
worth it.
crazy.
And it's nice
Super
that there were
strong.
still even some merchants in some of those later levels, and that whenever you would talk
Right.
to them, so you could get more arrows, and whenever you talk to them, like, oh, this is a dangerous place, conjurer, or whatever
like,
they'd say.
Yeah, what are you doing here? It's like, what are you doing
Yeah,
here?
exactly.
This is
It's like-
Hecubah's like place.
Yeah. What, you're telling
Yeah.
me it's dangerous? What are you doing here? Like, how do you
Yeah.
get all your goods up here?
Yeah, wait
Who's
a
your
minute. Who delivers
supplier?
goods? Who do you sell to?
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
But dude, the merchants, man,
Um,
so many of them, their avatar, their face. Like I mentioned this before actually a little bit, that I thought they were gonna scam me. Like their face was just like the kind of dude that would totally like sell you one thing, and it's just
it looked like an
another thing entirely
urchin, basically, like disguised as a guy to me.
as a human.
I'm like, these freaking guys.
I knew it. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I thought the first time I talked to one of the first merchants, because even like the voice actor, which I don't know if that's what they were going for or whatever, but it sounded a little bit like, this is kind of a shady character. Maybe he's not very super trustworthy, and like,
Well,
Yeah, dude,
definitely. I think all merchants back then were like grifters and
probably
and a little shady. Had to do some shady dealings.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. Yeah, well, okay, so that kind of covers our, unless we have any kind of mechanical level gameplay stuff that we want to mention, that sounds like a pretty good summary. I personally really enjoyed the gameplay of this game, and it disappointed me greatly when there weren't really any other games like this. Like, I liked Diablo enough, but I just really liked the focus on the action stuff when it came to Nox. So,
Yeah. I aside from some like things that have just been quality of life, that's how you would even say it, just kind of
sure.
playing newer games and more modern games. And aside from the like Jake said, being able to like pick up stuff, like picking up potions or gold. And like another thing that annoyed me too is if I did have creatures and I opened a chest, it would usually open the gold and the gold would be hidden by the creatures that I've just charmed. And I'm like trying to like move my mouse to see where it ended up being, and like I would move. So aside from like nitpicky stuff like that, it was kind of annoying. Oh, another thing actually though that annoyed me a lot was the AI of my charmed creatures. I remember walking down this hallway with a bunch of holes, and like you have to weave through the holes, and I had 2 bears charmed, and they would keep
Good luck.
falling into the hole
Yeah.
every single time, and I'm like, what? Why are you doing this? And so I would like very specifically walk very slowly, and I would like position myself, and I would hug the wall so that they would hopefully follow right behind me, and I'd be hugging the wall and they would just like barge through the middle and like fall down the hole, and I'm just like, why do I even have you guys charmed? I probably went and like fell down and tried to rescue them like 3 times where I finally I was just like, all right, I'm done with this, I'm banishing you guys.
Forget
But yeah, so
As a conjurer, you learn that your summons are very disposable.
Yes,
because they're dumb.
They're very dumb and very slow. But yeah, aside from like
very slow.
those nitpicky stuff
I
like
think
that,
that's held over to modern games. So
it's true.
That's true. There hasn't been much improvement on that front.
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
but
I'll
I
just
mean,
go ahead.
well, yeah, just to finish real quick, it's for a game that came out that long ago, like the gameplay was pretty well actually, as far as like the Conjurer goes, because that's really all I can talk to. But yeah, you know, it was good. I don't really have like crazy negative things to say about that aside from the stuff that I've already said I disliked, and then the rest is just nitpicky stuff, which, you know, it's kind of whatever.
Yeah, to recap, for me, it's less about quality of life improvements, although there are some that could probably happen. I actually think the game is very solidly made. It's just not in depth enough for me. It needs to be fleshed out more in the combat for the melee and the warrior specifically. But I think the game is super solid, and there's not even that many quality of life improvements I can think of besides just like more options like the normal games have now, and then visual updates. But again, I didn't play through the entire game, but just watching videos of it and playing what multiplayer we did play, yeah, it's just I would have loved to have seen a sequel or seen this into a full series of games that continue to come out, because yeah, it's got a lot going on. And again, I wasn't frustrated with the game not working properly. It's just I wasn't getting anything out of the action moment to moment. So, but it works. It's solid, and there's a ton of ideas. So it's less about the quality of life stuff that you were mentioning, George. But yeah, the biggest thing for me, I don't know what's on your list next, Graham.
We've got story, characters, plot, background,
Okay,
stuff like that.
I'll just
to what you're saying about the like the sequel and stuff. I think Nox 2 had, because of how strong of a showing Nox 1 was, I think Nox 2 would have just absolutely crushed. I think if they would have taken the great foundation that Nox 1 was and made it into Nox 2, maybe add even a class or two, flesh out the warrior, because the warrior has barely anything going for them, then, you know, I think it could have been an amazing game that the general gaming community looks back and goes, oh man, you remember Nox 2? That was incredible, blah, blah, blah. Like, and I think we're in the worst timeline where EA ended up buying Westwood Studios, which is the company that made Nox, and they, you know, as EA does, they absolutely murdered that company and absorbed all their talent, or the talent just left. And now Nox is a dead IP that sits in the bunker inside EA, and they don't do anything with it. So I remember listening to some interviews recently that they had with some of the Nox developers, or the lead developer, and he said there were absolutely plans to make Nox like a full series and stuff like that. So it's exceptionally disappointing to hear that, you know, one of my personal favorite games of all time just didn't go anywhere. So disappointing.
Yep, very
Definitely
sad.
too bad. Definitely too bad.
Yeah. All right, so we're moving on now to story, characters, plot, background, etc. So, um, I don't really have too much to say on this one. The story for all three of the campaigns is pretty much exactly the same. The beginning half, or even like the beginning 3 or 4 chapters, is different for each of the classes. But after that, everything is like it just kind of, you always go to the orc camp, you always go to the swamp, you always go to the ice place, and the last chapters are all the same. Um, so there's really not much for me story wise. The one thing that really stands out for me though is other than Hecubah being just an absolutely fantastic character that doesn't get enough screen time, she's a hilarious villain. She has a great blend of like being hilarious. She's like funny in the incompetent but not incompetent. Like she's not incompetent at all. She's very capable, but like she's doing her spell. Like in the beginning of it, she's doing her spell, the candle goes out. It's like, okay, it's like incompetence, but it's like there's failures all around her, but it's not her fault. And so like she is just like the butt of a lot of jokes and stuff like that throughout the game.
She
But
just
then
can't
like
catch
she'll
a
go in.
break ever.
That's what it
Which
is.
is probably why
Exactly.
she's trying to take over the world and kill everything.
Yeah, exactly. But then she'll go and she'll kill like the warrior general guy and all of his fire guards in like a second. Just boom, 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 boom. You're all dead. It's like she can really get stuff done. She can't catch a break, but she's very capable. She made for a really compelling character. She was my favorite character in the whole game for sure. Everyone else is really bland. But I mean, other than her, like I liked that when I played warrior, we like hated the wizard like faction. And so like when you played wizard, you like went into the wizard tower and like did some stuff in the wizard tower and you're just kind of going out. But when you're a warrior, you go in the wizard tower and you're like declaring war. You go in there and you fight tons and tons of wizards. You're like battling the tower. So it was really cool to be like, whoa, in another playthrough, we were all friends and I was like collecting items in here. And another playthrough, I'm slaughtering all these guys.
Yeah,
and then
that's
like
really
the
cool.
Conjurer has its own thing. Yeah, it was really cool to, and then the wizard goes to the warrior town and you've got to like sneak around and like only fight like a little bit of guys because everyone's so strong and you're like a wizard and you got to use spells to get around, blah, blah, blah. So it's just like, that was really cool. That was a really cool aspect of the story. Now they all kind of funnel into the same kind of ending. They do have a unique ending per class, but it's all generally the same. So I thought it was pretty cool. Hecubah's really funny, but it's a generally pretty shallow thing. Like it's
Yeah.
not a story that you're gonna think about later, really.
Yeah, it's pretty just, the guy gets sucked into the world and now he has to stop the evil villain from raising an army of undead. That's literally the story.
Yeah.
So but I mean, it serves excuse me, it serves its purpose. It's not super exceptional as far as like story writing and everything goes, but I mean, that's not really where the enjoyment of this game is. There's other games that are maybe more story driven specifically. But this one, the story did drive the levels and the chapters of the game. Hecubah
Yep.
was great. I like that whenever you died, she would taunt you. You would die, and then it would show a death screen of whatever you were supposed to do that chapter, and she would say some quip about how you're a failure, and because you failed at this thing, now she rules the world or whatever
Oh
it
yeah,
is. And
I forgot to mention. Yeah, I thought the death scenes were really cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, there was a lot of them too, and it
Yeah.
wasn't just per level. I don't think it was like sections of the level
Mhm.
had a different one for dying.
yeah. I died the same time and like, or yeah, 3 times in the same area of the level. Just like something different happened to me, and they were all different art, like drawings and captions.
yeah,
Crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
that was
a really
cool.
good touch.
Yeah, really cool touch. And I love, I like the fact that she taunts you because it kind of makes you like, oh, I'm gonna get you. Like, talk smack
And it
right
really
now all you want, but I'm gonna.
It fleshes her out too because she
does,
doesn't get a
yeah.
lot of screen time, so
Mhm.
it helps you get to know the character a little more.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, Hecubah, she was definitely the strongest point of the whole game, the whole story, I should say, not the game, but the whole story. So I don't have a lot to say about it. It served its purpose. Nothing, like you said, that I'll be thinking about, for days to come. But I don't have any complaints.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Yeah, it
favorite
was a
character was Jack's wife or girlfand at the beginning when she's going to get the bacon.
she's making
And it's
bacon.
just a
Crucial
tragedy that
part
you
of the
get
story.
separated from her.
It
When
is. It
she's
is a
cooking you
tragedy.
bacon for dinner. I love
Yeah.
breakfast for dinner. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was really in touch with that character right at the beginning there.
Yeah.
No, I could tell. I kind of thought at first it was gonna be more in depth with the story and maybe some player agency. But yeah, it became clear pretty quick that it wasn't the point of the game. But I didn't think that was an issue. That wasn't the issue I had with it. The world still stands on its own with everything they've done to it. Yeah, it's not a big deal that the story is kind of generic. They built the world really well from what I've seen. So yeah, I think they did a good job with that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of crafting. That's a good point. I didn't really think about that too much until you mentioned that. Like, they do a good job of building like a background and like a living world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have like the warriors, the fire warriors, and you've got like this mage tower and stuff. And it really does feel like these factions, like they even had like at the beginning of the warrior one, there's like a wizard that shows up, and they're like, this wizard, like, we'll hit you again if you use any more magic. And so it really does feel like, wow, I'm like going into this world that's like actively happening around me. Like, it's not like this world just started when I arrived, but like there's factions already warring and they don't like each other. And so
And
yeah, it's
yeah,
cool.
and I have a couple of questions too about that. Like, at any point is it mentioned that there's a prophecy that you're fulfilling, or is it just kind of like, see, I like that too because
Yeah.
you're sucked into this world from nowhere, but you're not really like from what I saw at the beginning, the guy's just kind of like, oh, you look like you might have some talent. You should probably get down there and do some stuff. So just out of like consequence of being put here, Jack has to just learn all this stuff and go at it. And you just
That's true. That's a
so
good point.
I liked that aspect of it where at least at any point that I got to, it wasn't like, oh, you're the chosen one. Like everybody's just you like you have to prove your worth. Um,
Right.
Yeah.
and nobody's really like expecting you to save the world initially. So
Until
I
yeah,
like
and
that
then
they don't play on that trope. They're just kind of like, no man, you gotta go after it. Which also the hardcoreness of the game, like you could die pretty easily, pretty fast at some points, kind of leads into that. And it's like, oh, you're not, at least near the beginning, you're not just this overpowered like easy gonna push everything over. You know,
just some Jack,
Yeah.
some
Random.
normal guy.
That's a good point, though. I do, yeah. Now that you mention it,
That's
I
true.
do think I like the fact that they don't do the whole chosen one trope and all that. Nothing against that. Some of my favorite stories
yeah,
have the whole chosen one
most of
trope,
them.
Most
But
of
it
them,
just kind of goes, it kind of fits in with the way that they're building it, that it's not
yeah.
like that.
No, definitely.
Also,
I
so
100% agree. For sure.
It makes it feel more real and grounded.
yeah,
Because like the beginning of the wizard quest, you're just like a guy who's like washed up on the beach, and the wizard's just like, oh, like, hi, like, who are you, I guess, like, could you, you want to learn magic, like someone told you to come learn magic, like, I guess, but like my apprentice, I already have an apprentice, but they're like lost, can you go like find them, and if you find them, then maybe I'll teach you. And then you find them, and then their apprentice is dead. So it's like, okay, well, I mean, if you
you're
went
right.
all the way down there, and yeah, it's like if you went all the way down there and survived, and my apprentice is dead, well, I guess you're a better apprentice at this
you
point.
got the
And
job,
so he teaches,
whether you
yeah,
want
you
it
got
or
the
not.
job, and that's yeah, like that's it. So it's like, and then you just happen into it because you're with Jandar, the airship captain, and he's just like, we gotta, like, he sees the tides turning with Hecubah and what she's doing. He says, and he just happens to be a guy who knows what to do. He's like, we got to get this Staff of Oblivion. It's the only way to stop her. So let's see if we can get the pieces together.
Well, they explain later why? Wasn't he like one of the guys that led the armies towards her
Yeah.
against her?
Yeah, he's the war hero who led the
It's
armies
so
of
funny
the
because now he's
against
just
the
like
undead.
this, like he looks like the Captain Crunch captain, like 100%.
He does.
Like,
Yeah, he totally does.
Like, it's just
Yeah.
this like a brave warrior, you know. And now he looks like
Yeah, because
literally
you
the guy
guys,
off a
I don't know
cereal box.
if Jake, if you saw that art, but it's the art of the warrior army fighting the undead army, and he looks like amazing. He's got like
Yes,
long hair, he's
actually, that
buff.
that piece of artwork is pretty sweet, actually.
It's really sweet, yeah. And then
some
so
of
that
some of
guy,
those
that's the
little
airship
scroll
captain.
drawing things are really cool.
Yeah, they're really good. Yeah, they definitely add.
But yeah,
But yeah,
I
that's
would
the,
I would not have guessed that was him.
they don't
Yeah.
they don't look similar at all.
Yeah, like George said, he looks like a mascot for something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's just-
exactly.
He did not
again,
age
which just
well.
like it's so weird. It's like the juxtaposition of the serious like black metal style like warriors and like death and all this stuff, and then like everybody's kind of
Captain
turned
Crunch.
into a caricature. Like
Right.
Hecubah is kind of a caricature of a villain. Like yeah,
Right.
she's evil and everything, but yeah, it seems like they did that to him as well. So my other question, I had two questions.
Sure.
One of them was the are you fulfilling a prophecy thing, and the other one was I was interested, is Hecubah actually from that world? Or is there something at the end, like
So-
there's a twist of like she was never supposed to be there either, and she was just trying to escape, but she didn't. That's why she didn't care about anybody. Or
I think she
I-
is from
I
that
don't-
world, right?
I think she is, yeah. So she was born, she was a child that survived the war against the undead, or the evil warlocks, I believe it was. And so she was like the last surviving warlock. I mean, she was a baby. And
Oh,
so
okay.
Jandar,
she was the
saw the
survivor of
baby-
genocide.
basically, yeah, they had to take all the warlocks out because they're trying to take over the world.
That would have
blah,
been the
blah,
fourth. That would have been the fourth
Class in
class
Knock
in two would have been warlocks.
Yeah.
blah. War, exactly.
They would have went
Oh,
back in time and did the
totally.
war, and then you would have played a warlock in that campaign.
Oh, that would have been amazing. Yeah, so Jandar decides that there's been enough killing and no one's going to kill anymore. So he takes this child and says, like, okay, we can't raise her in like human societies. So he gives her to the orcs or the ogres and is like, okay, can you raise this child? And so she predictably turns out to be really evil and bad. And
Okay, now I do
yeah.
remember that part of the story because I did get that far.
Yeah. So the funny thing is at the end of, so each of the endings is different, right? So at the end of one of them, I can't remember which one's which, but one of them is Jack goes home and he comes back and he's got Hecubah's crown in his hand.
Is his trailer
And
still
then-
there?
His trailer is still there, and she said his wife or girlfriend says, "Hey, the bacon's almost ready," and then he's just kind of like sitting on the couch, just like, and she's like, "Jack, is everything okay, Jack? Jack, why are you looking like that?" And she's like, it's like the most hilarious like nagging because he's just like sitting there, just like smiling or
What did
whatever.
I
And she's like,
just
"Jack,
come through?
what's
He's
going
like,
on,
I just
Jack?
took
What
too
are
big
you?"
of a hit off the bong and went to a place called.
He just went somewhere. And so his like clothes are smoking. So she's like, "Why are you on fire, Jack? What happened, Jack? What's going on?" And so it's like that's one of the endings. One of the endings doesn't make any sense at all, but Jack uses the Staff of Oblivion and like shoots Hecubah, and she turns into like a normal human girl who kind of looks like almost like a Barbie doll, just like a very typical 90s like pretty girl kind of thing. And like that's what happens to Hecubah, and then she like falls down and he like helps her up and she's like, "Who are you? Where are you from?" He's like, "I don't know. I'm not from around here, but I'm starting to like it here. So maybe I'll stick around."
God, that's definitely a
Yeah, like
late
it's
90s
2000
ending.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
So
late
there's
90s,
that
early
one,
2000s ending.
and I think that's
That's got to be Wizard
can't
because
remember.
the Conjurer
What's-
ending, she gets sucked into like the orb in the staff. Basically, she tries to kill the player character. She tries to kill Jack, and puts him in this. There's like
the
two
room with
closing
the
walls.
spikes.
Yeah, there's a room with spikes, and the walls are closing in, and they're gonna like kill him. And then he like shoots stuff at her, and she's like, "Haha, you missed!" And he's like, "I didn't miss." And then like these orcs like come out from nowhere, and they like
Yeah.
restrain her, and she's like, "What are
they
you doing?"
hold her.
Yeah, he's like, "Unlock the door," all like Jedi Master style. Like one of the orcs reaches in and unlocks the door and lets him out. And then she does some sort of spell where the spikes start coming out of the walls and everything, and he does this all like weird Matrix like dodging.
Do yourself a favor and watch this cinematic, because
Yeah.
the animation that they have in this is so janky and amazing. It's incredible.
And the voice acting too, he's just like whoa, 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 like he's like dodging everything. Yeah.
Conjurer Ending. Watch it on YouTube. It's incredible.
Yeah. And then what I don't remember exactly what happens. I think the orcs throw her in, or not orcs. What are they called? Ogres. The ogres throw her into the room with the spikes, and then they close the door. And then I think they start closing again, or do they not? I don't remember. But the only thing I remember is that then he then sucks her soul into this orb. Right. And then he gives the orb to the captain, and then he like puts it on the top of the TV because the captain asked for the TV in the beginning of the game.
That's right.
And he's like, "Let's go find a plug for this thing." And I'm just like, "Where are you ever gonna find like a plug for this TV?"
That's right. Okay. Yes. So there's that one. The wizard one is the one where she turns into like some Barbie person, and the warrior one, I believe, is the one where you go back.
He goes home.
Well, they do have power in this world, George, because at the beginning of the Warriors thing, what the first mission is like, go find the engineer because he fell in the sewers, and he runs the power plant. That's true. So they have power.
That's true.
And they
just need to come up with a plug
too. Like
they've got it
some
all.
way or another they would do it.
So he would just need them to build the plug for it. Or hotwire, cut off the wires and hotwire.
There you go.
But then what are they going to watch, though? Then they're going to have to make their own TV station.
That's true. There's no
and broadcast their own TV.
Hey, man, Jack's starting a revolution in, wherever planet it is.
So how do the other stories start, though? Because the Conjurer one, he starts off with he's falling, and he, like, falls into the airship of the captain.
Yep. That's
and he
like warrior starts.
Okay, he's like, get off my ship and
like
whatever.
That.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, he's like,
so all the
what
cinematics
is this contraption that you have
same.
here? And he's
a TV. What a novel concept.
Yeah, he's so obsessed with the TV, and it's just a box.
Wait, and then I love Jack's like, wait until you see it turned on. Wait until it's on, then you really see something. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, they all start the same cinematic, but it's what happens after. I guess the difference is Jack says, I want to be a warrior, I want to be a wizard, I want to be a conjurer. And so then John Dar's like, oh, okay, if you want to be a wizard, you've got to go blah, blah, blah. So,
Yeah,
so that's,
the charm of the cinematics in the story. There's not a lot, but they're cool. I like them.
It's a very charming game. I have a lot of nostalgia for it, and it holds up pretty well in like a good cheesy way, I would say. All right. Well, let's move on to visuals, graphics, audio, music. Before we get into this, or as we're getting into this section, I played a little bit, or I followed along with Dallin playing a little bit just to make sure everything was working on his end from a technical perspective. And I was able to get some of his thoughts. And so one of the thoughts that he wanted, or the thought that he wanted to at least have passed on for him, was he really, really loved the sound design for like when you're in the crypt, there's like a lot of nice ambient sound. You hear like people yelling and screaming in the background or whatever. There's like a lot of good sounds.
What did he play, Dallin?
He played the warrior.
The warrior, okay.
Yeah, so like when you eat an apple, there's like a really crisp like apple chewing sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like when you do stuff, there's like a lot of really good meaty sounds to the whole game. And I kind of knew that on, I guess, a subconscious level, because when he pointed it out, I was like, that's true. This game does have a lot of really good sounds.
All
so
the
I was
gates
glad that
have
he
like
pointed
a very
it out.
like rusty hinge sound, like every time you open it. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really good sounds. So the sound design in this game, it almost may be like ahead of its time in some degree. I thought it was really good. As I was paying more and more attention to it, I just became more and more impressed. So the music, like the main menu music, is like the like blah 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 song that they've got at the beginning. That's pretty like catchy, but I think for the most part, there wasn't really much music that I really noticed other than the main menu song. So
yeah, I don't trying to remember. I don't
anyone?
think I picked up on any specific music. I did pick up on all the words that they would do whenever they would do spells. That was the main thing I picked up on.
Dude, bro.
And dude, bro.
Dude, bro.
Yeah.
The wiki. The funny thing is, the wiki has so the noise is, just for anyone wondering. So when you cast a spell, your character, depending on the spell they cast, they do hand gesture, and there's a sound that applies to each hand gesture. So there's ka. I'll just do the hand gesture actually, since I have it here. There's ka.
Well,
There's
say it for like the people that are listening. So just like 5.
Okay, so so
Yeah.
you put your hand out. Well, for people who are listening, we'll have to look up on the wiki. I don't want to describe
guess
all of
that's
them,
true,
but
Yeah.
so there's ka, un, in, et, cha, zo. What is this? Zo is like this. Zo, and ro. Sorry, that's ro. Zo. Ro is this one. Zo is this one. Do, and I fricked this up somewhere. Ro and
Dude,
then
brah.
this one with something else. Do bra. Yeah.
This is dude,
So when
bro.
you cast a spell,
The
your
surfer
so you
signal is
see-
Dubra.
Yeah, do bruh. So when you cast a spell, actually this is do, which is funny. So when you cast a spell, you see the symbols around your character, and you hear them say these like incantations really quick. So like sometimes you just hear like all sorts of like random freaking sounds as you're going about. Like, no, it doesn't have like the sounds; it just has the hand gestures. But yeah, so I think it was pretty great. As I mentioned before, I thought it was good for immersion. So it just, but they really did pay a lot of attention to like what are some interesting and good sounds we can
I
add.
didn't
to the
know that they
experience.
had that the hand gestures were tied specifically, like whatever all the ones you did were tied specifically to an individual sound. I literally thought I
Yeah.
was just seeing random hand gestures. Like I didn't pay enough attention to it apparently, but I thought it was just random hand gestures, and the sounds were what like kind of what determined it. But I guess it's all tied, which is a little bit mind blowing to be honest. Like that attention to detail is
Mm-hmm.
wow. Props to them.
That's like James
for-
Cameron making a whole alphabet for his movie.
Yeah, it's kind a little bit like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Props.
Yeah,
To them.
it's pretty cool. It's probably not something like you said, like it's probably not something you notice right away, but after you play, like I played a lot. So like you start to notice like, wait a second, like I'm seeing this hand gesture and hearing this noise, and you kind of start tying it all together. But it is cool. Like it really, for me, it adds a lot. It adds a lot of just flavor and personality and atmosphere to it. So
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah, I found the sound design amazing as well. It's like, from my experience, it was like 80% really good stuff, and then 20% like bad voice acting and annoying repetitive sounds. Like I didn't like
sure.
using it. The sounds of the abilities were cool like the first time you hear them, but then when you're doing them a lot, like the warrior charge just was like pretty annoying after a
Oh
while.
man, the warrior charge is the most iconic sound in like the spells are really iconic, but the
It's like
freaking
and then it like echoes
Yeah,
off or
dude.
something. It's like no, okay.
I guarantee every Nox player will know that sound. If you did that sound, every single Nox player will know exactly what's going on. If you were just
Yeah.
like, "Did you ever play Nox?" They'd be like, "Yeah." You'd be like, they'd be like, "Oh, it's a charge! It's a warrior charge."
Yeah.
They'll know, man.
So I found some of them annoying and repetitive. But yeah, in general, I think it's pretty. The sound design is really good. They got a lot of good samples, obviously, and again, so much voice acting. Some of them were a little bit phoned in, and some of them were amazing. So,
Yeah, some of them were probably the janitor got commissioned to do a voice.
but my biggest pick at the game, as far as not talking about mechanics, but like in sound and visuals, was
Sure.
in the visuals. I hate the point of view thing. It's
Really?
yeah, it's neat. Like it's a neat idea, and but in practice, for me, it's just I think the game actually does look okay. Just from a base perspective, for an older game. It doesn't look like I could tell mostly what everything was. I mean, some of the textures were a little jumbly, but for the most part, I was like, this is not a bad looking game. I could get used to this. But then as I was walking around more and more and getting into more complicated areas where things were blocking your field of view, so it doesn't have
Oh,
the normal fog of war thing where it's like just a black area, and then when you walk into it, the area is lighted up, and but then if you walk back
Right.
out of it, it just goes into like a halfway point, because that's normal fog
Right.
of mode or fog of war that I'm used to in games like this. But this game has everything's black that your character can't see.
Can't directly see.
Yeah.
So if there's
So,
a pillar, everything like on a cone
oh,
is all
yeah.
black.
So it ruined the game visually for me. It's another thing that just really grated on me because watching all these black like lines and the light just come back and forth constantly when you're moving around everywhere was giving me a headache, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, and you couldn't turn it off. There was other things you could do with like you could get rid of the walls and or
Right.
make them. I think they're by default like you can see through them a little bit, but you can either make them like
Right.
not can't see through or remove them altogether. But it doesn't change the actual like walking around, and you just it's just so much movement on the outer
mm-hmm.
like the things that aren't actually moving.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
peripheral.
constantly just on and off with the dark and the light, and I just could not stand it. I was like, I wish I could just draw a circle around him and just see this part because
Huh.
on its own, I don't think the game looks that bad. And I feel like the field of view thing definitely would have been something that if they did do a sequel, I would have hoped they would have went more modern with that because again, very good
That
idea because or a neat idea rather because you could like walk up to a building and look in the window and but you could only see like what you were seeing through the window. So it has a novel purpose to it, but I just think that for me is the one quality of life thing that maybe would
Same.
have helped me finish the game because I could not stand that.
See, I don't know
Yeah.
if Nox would be the same without that because I love the fact that like you don't know what's just around the corner or around the pillar because you just can't see it.
I
Yeah,
think I think maybe like just improving the amount of pillars that they put. There were some parts. I agree with almost everything you said, Jake. Obviously, I did finish the game, but that was one of the things that I disliked the most. Actually, now that we're talking about it, I distinctly remember there were some temples or dungeons or whatever they were, where they would have a bunch of pillars on the sides, and like the shadows would kind of converge, and it just there was specific points where just like half the screen was just black, but it wasn't really just it was like crisscrossing shadows, and it just looked so weird, and it was
yeah,
very
it just
very
looks very
distracting.
strange.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely very very
Hmm.
distracting. um I didn't like
In-
the field of view stuff either. It was
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would have.
I like it.
Yeah, I
I
think
like
from a
It's interesting.
gameplay perspective, like you're saying, that's obviously why they did it. I mean, especially when you're playing multiplayer and you have less complicated environments that, and you're not really exploring. You're just more like, it's basically like they're trying to make it like you're a first person or third person. Like you can't corner peek, you
Right.
can't see around the corner when somebody's running. So, but in the single player and just exploring environments, it just feels so bad. Like I feel like they could have made that able to be turned off, and the game would have still been fine because um, they could find other. I mean, a lot of times they just hid. I don't know how it is throughout the game, but a lot of times they just hid monsters behind walls or something anyway. Like from what I was seeing, so
Yeah.
I would have
Yeah,
I
liked to have
I
seen more of the environment like in its natural like art rather than seeing it in these
be
weird
hidden.
shadows and stuff. So
yeah.
again, it's just
I
another
think
like multiplayer or single player. Like what were they going for more? And I think it's definitely the multiplayer. It makes way more sense to have this.
I for
yeah.
me real quick, and I know you want to say something, Grant, but real quick
Sure, sure.
for me, uh, I don't even mind the fact that I couldn't see like if it was an enemy or even another person like behind a wall or behind a corner. It was the fact that it was just like I couldn't see anything. Like it was just black. Like if it somehow, like Jake, like you said, where it just grayed out that section, and maybe it was like I could see the terrain, but just not what's there. Like I wouldn't be able to see a player, but I would maybe be able to see the terrain, and stuff like that. That would have been a perfect blend of both of the things, and I would have loved that actually, because
Yeah,
I do
and
think
that's
it has
how
a
like
purpose.
RTSs did it for sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure then it's like you could see like once you discovered an area, you could see the static like
Mhm.
terrain of that. You could see it all, but you didn't know if there was a unit there. So
Yeah.
it was in a
Right.
halfway grayed out area, and then once your character got to that area, then you would uncover what was actually there.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. Is I guess the best solution would be to have it initially all black,
Mm-hmm.
and then as like the cut kind of happens and it reveals it, and then it kind of cuts up to a point where you've seen, and then when you go away, a gray screen should have come back instead of black coming back. It should have been a gray to come back, so you can still see all that, but you know that you can't actively see what's there, like
Yeah.
Yes.
monster wise.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, and then
let's
just making the visuals a little bit better would have helped with that too, because it wasn't just the black stuff. It was like you could see the corners in the black lines too. You could see the pixels in them. So there's just
Right.
like everything about it was just grating. Like
I see what you're saying. StarCraft, they had Fog of War before this, but StarCraft is one of the big ones in Warcraft. But StarCraft came out in 1998, so that Fog of War concept wasn't exactly super prevalent. Like this game was probably in development for a couple of years, right? So,
mm-hmm.
um,
That's
they
true.
probably were pioneering the Fog of War. But yeah, that is a good point. They probably, if there was a sequel, they would have gone with a more, I guess now, traditional style of map
Or
review
found a way
and
to
kind
make
of
that one to make it look better and not be so
right.
like if it was smoother and it just looked better, and maybe it wouldn't be as bad. But yeah,
Right.
it's amazing though. It's cool. I've never played a game like that where you're in an isometric view and you're walking around your field of view. So it's like from a technical perspective, it seems pretty amazing, especially for the time, like you said.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
practice,
It's
felt bad.
yeah, it's something I've not really thought about. I definitely noticed it when I was playing, but it's not something I thought too much about. So that's interesting that you got your guys' thoughts on that. It's interesting.
Yeah, I disliked that more than the mechanics part that I didn't like.
Interesting. Huh. Yeah, so I think overall, the one thing I wanted to say about the graphics, I absolutely love the look of the game a lot. I think if you HDified the game, it would look good, but I think there's something charming and grounded about the look of the game that really helps to really build immersion. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I really liked like the visuals of it. There's some stuff that's a little hard to make out, like a little muddied. There's like in this swamp, there's these shade characters, the shade monsters, and they're like really hard to see. They're like little black monkey guys. And so they're really hard to see, but the swamp is also dark. The ground is dark. The area doesn't have a lot of light. So there's also that. But so yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I liked more environments would probably do really good for Nox. Like the environments are pretty basic. There's like, fantasy camp. There's like fantasy village. There's fantasy swamp and fantasy,
Ice.
ice
Forest.
and
Tundra.
forest and tundra.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's no like desert. Like a desert area would have been nice. Maybe even like a crystal-y kind of place. Like there's some mines, but it's pretty generic. More fantasy stuff, magical, like a magical area. Maybe like a dream dimension or something. Something. There's lots of cool things they could do with the visuals, but
Yeah.
alas.
But
All
for
right,
a 2000
well-
game, like I'm trying to think what other games were around that time, like Age of Empires, and it looks like almost the same. Or Age of Empires was even later, right? I don't
Could be.
remember,
Well,
but
Diablo 2 also
Depends.
came out the same year. So
yeah. So
Yeah.
it looked for its time. It looked
looked.
I think
good enough.
I think it's a better looking game than Diablo, in my opinion.
In my opinion, it's not, but I think it's just a style thing. I
It is
like.
quite a bit different style.
Yeah, it's not a bad style. I really liked the style of the old Diablos. I don't know why.
Right.
Like they really lost it in 3 for me, but there was something.
Yeah.
so black metal about those old Diablo games. It just
For
felt
sure.
super grimy and looked menacing all the time.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's understandable. All right. Well, that brings us to our final thoughts of Nox.
We should talk a little bit
Does
about
anyone
multiplayer.
I
Cause
was yeah, I was about to say
okay,
as I start, I guess I'll start with my final thoughts then, because I did want to also we'll launch into multiplayer a little bit. Yeah, so there's the single player as we talked about. There's the PvP. So PvP has a lot of different stuff. There's like a capture the flag. There's like a deathmatch style. There's elimination deathmatch. There's like a soccer type freaking game that you can play, which is kind of really clunky. But the PvP is absolutely total chaos. It's super fun. The netcode is absolutely terrible. So I've mostly played it in LAN settings where there was no lag whatsoever, and it worked really good. The problem with Nox Online is the netcode's not very good. There's no official servers anymore, so you got to use community servers. And then when it lags, you don't just like experience lag, you have frame lag that's tied to your ping. So the game becomes literally choppy as you have bad ping, and so it becomes a essentially unplayable mess. But the PvP is one of the things that it's most well known for. It's absolutely incredibly fun, just over the top fun. I can't even like the fun that we would have when we played it back in the day was just almost indescribable. It was so fun. The variety of like things to do and ways to like outplay your enemies and stuff like that, and the levels and stuff, just tons of fun.
I mean the little bit that we did like was super fun.
Yeah,
I do wish we
yeah.
would have done more. Obviously, there is the issue of like we're just so spread out. The lag
Yeah, like
was
I'm in
definitely an issue.
Japan and you guys are in America.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Even between America, you guys are spread out all over
Different
America, and the
states,
lag was
yeah.
bad through there. Yeah.
Yeah. But
So,
but it was fun though. Like I can see how it laid the groundwork for a lot of stuff to come. So that was awesome.
yeah, and then there's the quest mode, and the quest mode it's not procedurally generated, but the loot is randomized, and the spell books and stuff you get. So you start off with like a blank slate character. You have no spells. You have a basic weapon, and then you have to go through a big level, like one of like I don't know, let's say 12. There's like 12 different level types, and so you go throughout these really long levels together as a group, and you find like weapons, and you fight monsters, and then you go to the next level, and it just like levels up. So like it selects one of the 12 levels at random that's already been made, and then you get a level of the level, or so we'll call it the stage. So there's 12 stages, and then every time you beat a stage, it picks one at random, and it levels up the level of the monsters and the loot and stuff like that. So it's a really fun mode. Me and Brendan back in the day, we got to like level 20, which took hours and hours and hours to do. We would like play it all day. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. We unfortunately, same as PvP, we didn't really get a lot of chance to do that. I really, really, if you ever do anything with Nox, and for you guys who have already played it and you're looking if you want to play some more, just playing the solo quest mode, even by yourself, is a lot of fun. It's a really cool mode, way better than single player in my opinion. I think single player is a unique experience, but the best experience is quest mode, and of course PvP next to that. So
nice. Yeah, I gotta hand him like props again. The fact that the PvP and I don't know if it was just a quest mode that came
it was
out
quest mode
as
added as a free DLC.
Yeah, like that's
They were gonna do more with the game. Yeah, they were actually gonna do more with the game, but the buyout from EA, they basically shut everything down. So
yeah, like the
it's
fact that was free DLC, that quest thing, because we played it, not we could have played it a lot more, but we did play it, and it felt to me like just a better version of Gauntlet Legends, which is another old game.
Right.
That's literally what it felt like to me, like just a better version of Gauntlet Legends. But the fact that that's a free DLC, like just a gigantic new game,
Whole mode.
like
it's the whole thing.
and it was free. Like I struggle to think of any company that might do such a giant mode like that as free DLC nowadays. Maybe
Oh,
Nintendo for maybe some games, maybe.
maybe, but even
Uh,
then, they've really been hopping on the DLC thing.
yeah,
So
exactly. So that's amazing. The fact that that was a thing, but yeah, the multiplayer was definitely a highlight. I wish our connection would have been better. I can see, just as I guess as final thoughts, I can definitely see how uh, why there's so much love and nostalgia for this game. It's full of charm.
still an active community online.
Still an
Lots
active
of people.
community online. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And it's like just a game that's full of charm. Like I even just remember right now, like I walked into someone's house, into a villager's house, and the dude was like he had like his boxers on or his underwear or whatever, but his shirt was like on the floor and he's just like, "Oh." Like if you talk to him, he's just like, "Oh, I thought I locked that door," because he was just like in the middle of getting dressed, and then you just yank his shirt and like walk out,
Yay.
which was like, yeah. So like little things like that. The game is seriously full of charm. There's so many things that are funny about it, like that. And yeah, I mean, it was an enjoyable experience for me. I do definitely wish we would have played some more multiplayer together. I'm still definitely down to do some more later, especially the quest mode as well, because that seemed to be a
Yeah.
little bit more forgiving to our
The
connection
latency.
issues than
Yeah.
the PvP. But yeah, I mean, as far as closing thoughts, that's pretty much it that I have. It was a fun. I'm glad that you chose it, and I had a good time.
Nice. Awesome. Jake, take it away.
Yeah, so aside from my personal experience actually playing the game, um, it was very interesting and very sad to learn about this game and research it because didn't know anything about it. Barely played PC games back then, a few, but not many. But it's pretty apparent after doing the research that I have and playing a little bit of the multiplayer and just watching a bunch of stuff on it that this game, especially in the multiplayer and the PvE stuff, co-op wise, was so ahead of its time, I think, and lots of other people did. So I think this is not just one of those games where a group of people played it when they were a certain age and that's why they have a nostalgia for it. I think there's a real reason why people really have a love for this game. And I think it's because the game was made by people not just trying to make a game to make a bunch of money out of it. I mean, obviously it was their job, but you can tell from the amount of stuff that they put in the multiplayer, especially, these are people that liked to play games. And
Right.
it has a hardcore like feel to it when you I mean this 20v20 capture the flag. I haven't even played it, but it's I watched the videos of people playing it and talking about it and I'm like, yeah, that's what something I want to do. And then you see like you said the before the wizards can set traps and stuff and you got all this stuff. Warriors probably suck the most in multiplayer, but at least in the in capture the flag, like you could use their dash to run the flag and stuff. And then like you said, all these other modes and just all of this stuff. It just goes to show that it's really sad when EA buys something and kills it because
Seriously.
The lesson
this
of the
game,
podcast.
yeah,
Yeah, frick,
this
man.
game and the people who made it, the whole studio, they had a lot of potential in their ideas and their execution, that's just unparalleled for that time. And if they would have been able to go on with it, it who knows where we'd be right now. You know, the whole MOBA scene could have been different. And I actually wanted to shout out, I hope this is okay with you guys. If you heard my phone earlier, I was trying to look up this video, this one specific video that I encountered after watching a bunch of videos. This guy, Ruffian Basil on YouTube, does a really good video on Nox explaining, and it's a little bit of a clickbaity title. It's like how EA just killed, the granddaddy of MOBAs. But look it up if this conversation has been any interest to you.
We'll put it
or-
in the show notes. We'll put a link to the video.
Yeah,
in
we
the
can
show
put it in the
Okay, cool.
description, and yeah.
Yeah, because this guy just explains how much the community loves this game and why, and it really is. It's a good video, and it has definitely showed me that what the value of this is, even though I can't in this position for in 2021 play it and mechanically have fun with it, at least by myself. I did have more fun in the multiplayer, so.
Yeah. Well,
But-
I mean, I'm sure we'll give it a shot after the podcast. Well, not today, but at some point in the future, we'll have some fun with it. Maybe.
Yeah, but again, it was very interesting and very sad to hear about how much potential was there and how ahead of its time some of the things were.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's I mean, that's my sentiment too, man. I have such massively strong nostalgia for playing this game, and like when I think about the fact that EA picked up Westwood and just crushed them, and the fact that it was going to be a series and everything, like it's just devastatingly sad to me because there's really not a lot of games like Nox. Like if you modernized it just a little bit but kept kind of the core loop and core ideas there, I think it could be an incredible game even today. But it is it's neither here nor there, right? So hey, you know what, EA, you're never going to listen to this podcast, but if you ever just want to sell that IP to me, I will gladly take that off your hands. I'll give you, I'll take out a loan if I gotta, and I'll take that and I'll make a remake at least. At least we can get a remake of this gem. So, then that's what I'll pick in the future if they ever do a remake. That's what I'll pick for my game of the month when it rolls around. So, but either way, it'll never happen. But it's I'm glad that you guys had fun with it. I would like to, in the future, we'll probably mention if we do ever do some more multiplayer of it in the future, we can mention on the weekly. But it's a good, solid game. I think it aged surprisingly well. I was a little worried that it would be worse than I remembered, but I think it aged pretty well. There's certainly some of those little things that can be bothersome and certainly are relics of their time. But I think overall it was a pretty great experience. So thanks for joining me on this Nox adventure. Now, the best thing about all of this is it was only me and Brendan who had ever played this game. And one of the reasons why I wanted to pick this game, which is a little selfish, is I just wanted people to talk about Nox with. So when I can be like, guys, you remember XYZ and Nox? Ah, man, I love Nox so much. So now people can understand.
yes.
There you go.
And I'm sure that we will probably jump back in it as a group at some point.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd be so pleased.
Lots of
with
potential
that,
to have some fun nights with that, I think.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Maybe when if we ever do a Japan game club episode, we can do a LAN night where we play a bunch of games and Nox will be one of them. So
there you go.
maybe we'll see.
Yes.
But
goals.
either way, life goals. Either way, we'll get to the reveal of the next game in just a second. But as a closing of this conversation, thanks so much, you guys. I'm glad you could make it. We're sorry that the other two couldn't be here. They should be here next month if all things go well. But it's been a great conversation. I'm very, very happy that we could have a pretty decent experience with it overall. So thanks so much, guys, for joining me for Nox.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to talk with you guys. Sorry we haven't seen much of each other in the last couple weeks. But yeah,
hey,
everybody's
life
well.
gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah.
Life, yeah. No, it's been great. So I'm excited to hearing the next game. George,
Yeah.
What are you gonna torture us with, George?
Drum roll.
What do you got? Oh,
it might be torturous indeed. The game that I picked, I was doing some research and stuff, and I came across a game called Spec Ops: The Line. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
I
if
know
you
this.
have,
Okay, I've heard of it. Yes.
Don't look into it as much as you can. I think this is a game that you want to go into as least spoiled as you possibly can. But I heard good things, some scary things. Well, not scary in like the frightening way, more of as in like it causes me to hesitate. But it definitely piqued my interest, and so I figured, hey, what better format for me to approach this game than under the game club. So yeah, I have some hesitations, and I really thought, like, is this the right game to pick? Because some of the things that I heard made me hesitate, but I'm not gonna get into it too much. Just play it.
Sure. Okay.
If the things
Okay,
I heard are true,
tell us about
it's-
what the game is. Can you give us some kind of synopsis?
yeah. So it's a first person shooter,
Okay.
where you play as an American soldier in Dubai. But what I heard about the game is that the strong point is really in its story, and just kind of, well, I won't say anymore because I don't want to spoil anything. I was slightly spoiled as to what you can expect from the story, not as to the specific elements of the story, and so that's what piqued my interest. Hopefully, it's not too intense, but yeah, we'll see, and we'll be here next month to talk about it.
Yeah, I've heard of
excited.
this. It was definitely praised when it came out for its story content, and yeah, this is gonna be a very interesting one. I'm glad you picked it. Yeah, because I've never played it. Just came out at a weird time, I think,
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
But I always heard it, and it was getting put on my list. It also came out like at the end of when those types of shooters were kind of dying down in popularity.
Yeah.
Like, or either they had reached like massive popularity where there was just too many of them or something. So maybe it kind of
I think
got
it was
drowned out a
there
little
was
bit, but
yeah, there was definitely shooter fatigue. I remember when this
shooter
game
fatigue,
came out, and
yeah, that's what it was.
yeah, shooter fatigue was like really big in the game industry because we were coming out of that era of like lots of shooters. So I remember it coming out and being like, another shooter, Spec Ops: The Line.
Yeah, and it has
another one.
like the most uninteresting name, Spec Ops:
Yeah,
The Line.
Spec
It's like,
Ops: The Line. Like, really?
yeah,
But I remember people praising it and being like, this is not like the Call of Duties and Battlefields that are coming out that you think it is. This game is like something special. And I was like, huh, interesting. I remember watching videos about it like back when it came out, like forever ago. So I don't remember really anything. I just remember it's kind of an intense game.
yeah.
So I'm
Supposedly
excited
very
to check it out.
intense.
Yeah.
We'll see, and we'll be back here next month.
It's been so long since I played a shooter game in general. Like, it's gonna be really weird.
I'm excited. Well, excellent. Thanks for that. Blah, blah, blah. Thanks for that pick, George. That's excellent.
That's all, folks.
Yeah. Well, that's all, folks. All right. Well, that's great. We'll relay that to the other boys, and we will get playing that this month. Jeez, I lost all ability to talk at the end of the podcast here.
So tired. It's like afternoon for you. It's like 1 a.m. for me.
Yeah, I'm fresh. I'm
for us.
crazy hungry though. I haven't had lunch yet. But
All right.
we will see you in that conversation at the end of the month or a little bit into next month. But next week we will be here for our normal weekly podcast. We're going to be, we haven't made any decisions on what we're doing, but E3 is very soon. So we might be running some special length episodes for E3. We'll have to figure out what our scheduling is. At the very least, you can expect a good meaty episode from us, and we'll have E3 stuff. But, maybe we could stream, maybe we do something. We'll just, talk amongst ourselves and see what we want to do. So,
and just follow us on our socials.
Yep.
And to keep up to date with what we do, and if we decide to do like a stream or something, we'll definitely advertise it there.
Yep. We'll throw it right up there.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen. It has been an absolute pleasure as usual. And
Likewise.
Thank you for joining.
Awesome.
See ya.
And so,
See you guys.
Yep. And we'll see everyone else. Thanks so much for all of you joining as well.
Take care.
Bye.